Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2024. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with hybrid hexagon twists. On day 23 of Advent of Tess, we're folding this very floral motif that I designed named Clematis, and this uses a kite-shaped hybrid hexagon twist. So this is an asymmetric hybrid hexagon twist. And we're going to be folding on a 24-fold triangle grid on a hexagon. If you would like to see the crease pattern for this thing that we'll be folding, definitely make sure you're signed up for the email reminders at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to use a closed hexagon twist in the center, which means that the mountain folds are going to come straight out to the corner, and on the right hand side the valley folds are going to be one grid spacing above those mountain folds. I'm going to fold both the mountain and the valley, letting it come towards the center but not through the center, as I pass that off to my left hand and set up the next pleat. So both the mountain and the valley together, always. And the next one, and I'm passing these off to my left hand as I'm setting up the new ones. And making sure that my mountain is a mountain all the way into the center before I set up that valley fold. Now we can zoom in a bit to see how I get this the rest of the way flat. So I'm bringing my pleats in flat until two spaces. So notice 1, 2 from the central hexagon. And then I'm going to grab the central hexagon. I'm going to tap it on the top and grab it around the sides and squeeze slightly as I give it a sharp twist. The sharper, the faster you twist it, the cleaner it will come down. So it often makes a bit of a mess in the middle, but we're just going to lift up flaps, poke around at things, smooth things out until it gets this nice, even, closed hexagon shape. Everything on here is on grid lines, so we can freely lift up and double check our valley folds if we need to. And this is our side A. Now we're going to flip over to the opposite side. And I'm not going to draw a B there yet because it's going to get fragmented and distorted if I do. And for side B, we're going to put closed triangle twists as close in to the center as we can. So our valley folds are going to be right along the existing folded mountains on that flap underneath. And our mountain folds are going to be one spacing away. These are going to be closed triangle twists. So when we're putting in our third pleat, that's going to come to the same exact grid intersection that our initial two mountain folds met at, are still meeting at. And then we can squash. One cue, well, two cues that we can use is that the corner of this twist is coming exactly into the center at that closed hexagon hole, and our third pleat is creating a tube pleat as it's going out to the outside. And you could do everything here one spacing further apart and still fit it on this grid, but to get that nice floral motif, I do recommend working at this spacing. And also the spacing is going to be used again in the final day, so I recommend getting used to it now. Next up, we're going to bring this pleat out from under the triangle and that's the one that we're going to fold our next triangle on. So we can reference our valley with the next pleat over. So right at that folded mountain is the valley on the flap underneath. Our mountain fold is one spacing away. And I'm going to open the existing pleat. Notice I'm keeping this pleat from the previous triangle folded. And I don't actually care if I'm creating some folding through the existing triangle, but when I get that pleat settled in place with my pleat overlap right under the corner, now it's under the corner of both of them simultaneously, we can go ahead and squash the new triangle twist. And then remember to lift up the pleat from underneath our latest triangle so we can fold our next triangle on that. So again, valley fold right at the existing folded mountain, mountain fold one spacing further. We can see the intersection point of this new mountain and the mountain from the hexagon. And we're going to open the pleat from the hexagon until we can get our third direction of mountain fold coming to that same grid intersection, passing under the corner of the previous triangle twist, and squash. Now we're going to lift our new pleat out from under and do the exact same thing again. So set up my new valley and mountain fold so it's laying on top of the next pleat around. Then open my pleat from the hexagon so that I get my three-way intersection of mountains, and a new pleat headed off under the corner of the existing triangle twist, creating a pleat overlap, and squash. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Not quite that much. Okay. Excavating our next pleat from under the triangle that we just made, I'm going to create my new pleat laying on top of the next one around, and find my third pleat coming around that same intersection point and squash. And for my final triangle, I want to do all of that and also put in a compound wrap on this pleat coming from the first triangle. So I'm going to have my valley fold come straight out from the center, because the pleat that I would reference to is already folded into a triangle. And then as it meets this mountain fold, it's going to bounce until it hits the valley underneath, and then bounce back into the same orientation it was in before. We're going to have mountain folds parallel to all of that, or rather, yeah, parallel and offset by one grid spacing. It's useful now to excavate our target pleat from under our fifth triangle, and we want to pop the point that I initially drew on down and get those mountain folds above it set up also. And like usual, like we've been seeing the last several days, we can't get that compound wrap to fully flatten until we have the third pleat of our triangle twist. And once we have the third pleat of our triangle, we can go ahead and flatten the compound wrap and squash the triangle twist. So now I've got a stable situation in the middle there, and I can go ahead and draw on my letter B. Grabbing the compound wrap, I'll flip that so it's in the upper right area of my paper. I'm going to work on the next pleat overlap around clockwise. So with this hybrid hexagon twist, and I just took a moment to look over at the crease pattern, as I open up this pleat overlap, I'm specifically opening it up so that I see the continuation of this mountain fold coming from the upper of the two triangles that are feeding in. Because this upper mountain is going to be a long edge, one of the length 3 edges of this hybrid hexagon twist. So we've got length 1 and 2 and 3. And then we'll have, so we have this pleat coming in, we have our next pleat already. Our next direction is going to be parallel to this existing fold and 3 spaces away. So also known as coming right to the corner where I stopped counting my 3. I should mention I started counting that 3 1 space back from the intersection of these 2 mountain folds. So that's something to double check in case your paper doesn't look quite like mine. So I can get this new pleat in. It's 3 spaces away from the parallel pleat. And I'm going to treat these corners like, or treat this section really like sides of an open hexagon twist. So this mountain is going to go in 1, out 1, and then I'll find the next pleat, which will go in 1, out 1, find the next pleat, and for my final pleat, I've got this closed tight pleat, because that's what this bottom one is, a closed tight pleat coming in to the center, and my last pleat is also going to be closed, and it's going to come out on that grid line that I marked there. You could also think of that as hitting this mountain that's a long edge of this kite, 1 spacing in from where I went in 1, out 1. I'm going in 1, and I'm getting hit with this mountain fold coming into the center. So that's the setup for my kite hybrid hexagon twist. It's very similar to the 3-fold hybrid hexagon twist, except that this corner is an open tight pleat, not a closed tight pleat, so it's popped out like an open hexagon. And I can go ahead and squash these edges that are just like an open hexagon, and then pop in those pillows that are underneath so they can also lay down flat. Okay, so that's my first kite hybrid hexagon. I want to fold the next one, and one thing that's going to make it easier for me to fold the next one is to know okay, is the next triangle, is that going to be on the A side or the B side? And the next triangle in this version of the pattern is going to be on the B side. So we're going to be putting in a triangle wrap. We're going to have the valleys intersecting in a three-way intersection, not the mountains. Granted, with the triangle wrap, we have both temporarily, but the valleys are what eventually becomes the twist. And the next thing I need to know is, where is that triangle wrap? And that's something I can see on the crease pattern. So if I look at the crease pattern, which again, you can find when you're signed up for email reminders at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent. And I see, okay, on this pleat that's going around the center, it's going 2 spaces before it hits a valley fold. That's telling me the location of the triangle wrap. So this valley that's coming in is interrupting the mountain 2 spaces from the corner, from this right angle corner, and it's going to pass the mountain 1 spacing further, hit the existing valley fold underneath, and split off for the edge of the paper. So I can go ahead and bring up that pleat. And now when I open my pleat overlap, I just need the awareness that the top pleat, the pleat from the top triangle, is the one I'm going to extend the mountain fold on. And this starts to look pretty familiar, like a 3-fold hybrid hexagon twist. One of the things, so with this setup, I start seeing these long lines continuing. And those are indeed a pleat coming from this side and going along a long line, a pleat coming from this side and going along a long line. So I can go ahead and fold this pleat on top of the triangle wrap. That's going to form a accordion pleat. And this long line is going to go, so starting 1 before the intersection of these mountains, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to have the mountain that goes around the center, which is going to be 3 spaces away from the parallel mountain. And then our final mountain is going to treat this whole side like it's an open hexagon. So our sequence of open and closed is we have open, 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 closed, open, closed. So 3 open and then closed, open, closed is what we're going for with this kite hybrid hexagon twist. And you can see an individual tutorial for this twist in the Summer of Twists series, and that's on my YouTube channel as well as elsewhere on my website. And going around, we're going to be repeating, and now we have a lot of these parameters kind of internalized with the spacings, where we're going 2 spaces out on this mountain before it's interrupted by a valley fold heading into a triangle wrap. And on the other side, after we open up, we have 3 spaces between these parallel mountain folds. And your paper may be wanting to do something more like this, but we need to make sure that that little section is popped up. And then we also know that there's an accordion over the triangle wrap. We've seen that so many times over the last few days, but we know it because of the previous twist, not just from repetition. And then our final pleat, we need to remember, is an open type plate. And so we get this kite hybrid hexagon instead of a 3-fold hybrid hexagon. And squash. Rotating again, we're going to repeat exactly the same way, where we have these two spaces from the right angle corner into the valley fold that's forming the triangle wrap. And then as I open up down below, I'm going to make sure not to run that valley fold all the way in, but to stop it a little earlier so I can find this pointy corner. So notice from the three-way intersection of mountain folds in the triangle wrap, I've got two spaces until I hit this mountain fold going into this pointy corner. And really it's a zigzag two spaces out to the corner. And then here we have 1, 2, 3 spaces until our next mountain fold comes down. And our final two mountain folds, this one is going to form an accordion on top of the triangle wrap, and this one is going to continue our puffy hexagon star like it's an open hexagon twist. And squash. And yet another in exactly the same way. I've got my triangle wrap at that two spaces, remove from the corner of the previous hybrid hexagon twist, making sure this bit in here is a mountain as I open the pleat overlap, and I'm going to have 3 spaces between my parallel mountain folds. And here I'm running into extra pleat overlaps down below because this is my 5th hybrid hexagon twist. I'm almost all the way around. And squash. And as usual, if you want to see the slower setup of these hybrid hexagons, those first 3 are the places in the video where you can see that slower setup. So for our 6th hybrid hexagon, we're going to have those 2 spaces of mountain before we run into that with our new valley fold. One thing to notice is these are at a 120-degree angle. And we're going to pop that valley down to set up our triangle wrap. That's our valley continuing on the same grid line, 1 spacing more until it hits the existing valley underneath. And then those split off as a 3-way intersection of valleys. And we have a 3-way intersection of mountain folds, 1 spacing removed up above. And that wraps around, but it won't stay super tight until we untangle this pleat overlap outside, this compound wrap in here, so now my triangle wrap is more happy to lay down flat, and I'm coming in 2 spacings, and instead of letting that valley continue further, like it sometimes naturally wants to do, I'm stopping it early so I can have 2 spaces in, 2 spaces out. It's hitting the corner, and then I've got 1, 2, 3. Notice this was a 60-degree turn, not 120. And then at my 1, 2, 3 spacings, I'm sending a mountain down around the center. It's hitting the corner of an existing hybrid hexagon. We're going to erase this pleat that it's passing under until that pleat can wrap around it, creating an accordion down here. And then we need, so this is an in one, out one, like an open hexagon. We need the next in one, out one, and then the next pleat forming the accordion on top of the triangle wrap. And squash. So we're almost done. Now we just need to flip over to the B side and turn all of these triangle wraps into closed triangle twists. And this is really a situation where we have some freedom of choice. If you wanted to turn these triangle wraps into open triangle twists, that would be perfectly fine, and it wouldn't interfere with the pattern being able to be repeated at all. And speaking of repeats, I do have a couple ways to repeat this pattern. Like this whole thing as a chunk gets repeated in a broader pattern in the Advent of Tess 2024 ebook, which you can find at gatheringfolds.com and also on the Origami USA online store and Origami shop. So wherever you get your ebooks, your origami ebooks, you can get the crease pattern for more repeats of this design. So that's all for Clematis today. Make sure to ask for help if you need it. The Discord server is a great place for that. And you get access to my Discord server when you sign up for those email reminders. And there's lots of people that have been posting on Instagram and Facebook. Do tag me, Gathering Folds, so I can get notified when you post in those places, and use hashtag Advent of Tess or Advent of Tess 24 so more people can learn where you found these tutorials. All right, happy folding everyone, and I'll see you for tomorrow's tutorial.